My name is Mr. Delay, and well, this is my vlog. It's also my classroom, and that's also the Fort Morgan Fire Department behind me, home of a lot of cool people, both former students and current students, and people that they live with who call that place home as a job. We really appreciate the work they do in the community, and we really appreciate our firefighters and the administrative staff and anybody who works in that building and associated with those folks. You're a good part of our community, and we appreciate your hard work during this time where we're all in a little bit of a state. So thank you to our firefighters and our firefighter families. Today on the docket is a poem, We Real Cool, by the first African-American woman to win a Pulitzer Prize. Her name was Gwendolyn Brooks. A writing prompt that I'm sure you're going to enjoy and that I think you'll get a kick out of too. Oh, hi Natalie! There we go. It's funny. So mini lesson we're going to be doing is going to be compare and contrast, and it's going to be pretty exciting. And lastly, the song and the artist of the week is going to, or the day, I'm all messed up, it's going to be Creedence Clearwater Revival. My name is Mr. Delay, and class, thankfully, is now in session.
Talk nerdy to me. You name all 12 of the dogs, I can't resist that. And what's the core in your wand? I think that ours match. Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
April 1st, 2020. We made it to Wednesday. Woo! Yay for Wednesday. Well, coming up right now is a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks, the first African-American woman to win a Pulitzer Prize, which is a big deal. It's really awesome. She's an amazing writer, an amazing poet. If you want to explore more of her stuff, you're welcome to use her as a Google search to start looking at her poetry and her life and her story. She's absolutely one of America's great creators of literature. What I'm going to go ahead and do for you now is I'm going to read We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks. It's a very short piece, but there's a lot there to kind of explore, and it's a little topical to our current situation we're at in school. So here we go. We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. So the title is We Real Cool by the Pool Players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. And so I want you to imagine 7 kids, probably out late at night, kind of just lurking in the darkness, probably in some big city or maybe a small town. And they're not really up to no good, but they're not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they're playing pool, because that was the thing that you did. And they left school, they're not going to school, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they're kind of just on their own. But the last line is kind of a conversation, dying young and stuff like that. There's plenty more in there, and I hope that you'll kind of dig into that. But it's kind of like, you know, we've left school. None of us are really in the school building, but we're still here. We're still teaching. We're still doing education. It's just a fun little poem. So if you want to dig more into her story and maybe even see if my meaning is off, like my interpretation of this off the cuff right now is probably not right. It's probably way off base. But feel free to explore Google and see what it can tell you more about We Real Cool, the Pool Players, 7 at the Golden Shovel by Gwendolyn Brooks. That was part 1. Now on to part 2. Part 2 is the writing prompt. And the writing prompt for today, I think, is pretty appropriate. The writing prompt is, how do you soothe yourself when you're upset? How do you soothe yourself when you're upset? We're going to take 2 minutes, and you can write it in Google Docs, you can write it in your journal, you can just think about it, listen to the soft music in the background. But how do you soothe yourself when you're upset? Your time, and my time, starts now. thus, thus ends that. Oh, jeez. Okay, so that ends that, and you see that I've had some writing. I'm using a cool pen. If you don't know what this is, let me show it to you here. This is a calligraphy pen that I received for my groomsmen for my wedding day. So it's really quite cool. Anyway, so when I just brushed my hand over that wet ink, it just blurred it a little bit. Anyway, so that is what I've written. I'm going to read that to you real quick. I'm going to go ahead and read you what I wrote. I soothe myself by taking deep breaths and knowing that I can handle whatever is happening. I'm capable of dealing with the challenges because I know I'm good enough, strong enough, and can handle anything. This comes from 37 years of going around the sun, so I've had more time with dealing with knowing how to soothe myself. I also use music to help soothe myself. And as I was continuing to write, I would have talked about music I use, like classical music and stuff like that. But I've had 37 years, almost 38 years of doing this, of figuring out what works for me and how I can best soothe myself and de-stress and take some time. For you as sixth graders, this is that time where you're starting to figure that out. You're figuring out it's music, it's, you know, going kind of withdrawing into yourself. There's different coping mechanisms that you can use, counting to 10, taking a deep breath in, things like that. There's ways to kind of help soothe that kind of struggle bus. And I know it's hard during this time with a lot of the uncertainties and everything to kind of keep that anxiety at bay, but I know you can do it, and I know that we're going to get through it together, and we'll be back together in school eventually once this thing has kind of run its course and we are able to be back together in a community. For now, though, take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and know that you're in a good place and we're going to be all right. And this too will pass. Now on to part 3. Part 3 is where we talk about the lesson for today. And this week we've talked about theme, we've talked about symbolism. The third thing we need to talk about is compare and contrast. And I'll put the notes on the board here for you momentarily. Comparing and contrasting, we talked about this actually just before we went on break, and we did a common assessment about it. Remember, the difference between compare and contrast is pretty stark, which means it's pretty clear. Comparing is when you identify two things that are alike or similar between two or more things. Remember the example we used was the granola bar versus the candy bar, and how the granola bar and candy bar, we compare them, we're looking at similarities. We're looking at things that are similar. And so they are rectangular, they're edible, they're sweet. We kind of walked through that in class, if you remember that. And so we did a compare on the granola bar versus candy bar. So comparing is similarities. Keep that in mind as we kind of go forward here. Contrast is the other side of the coin, to borrow that metaphor. Contrasting is when you identify things that are not alike or that are different between two or more things. So the granola bar versus the candy bar, how are they different? Well, we talked about in class how a granola bar might be more healthy, have more healthy ingredients than a candy bar. A granola bar would have granola versus a candy bar would have chocolate. The granola bar might be shaped differently or might be packaged differently. A candy bar might be a larger item, might be a bigger bar of chocolate versus a granola bar which is more economically or healthily sized. And so we went through that and we talked about what are the differences between the two, and we really got down into it, if you remember in class, where we talked about how the differences do set those things apart, and you kind of worked through that. So I'm going to put up a picture of the Venn diagram, and that Venn diagram is basic. It's the basic way to run a compare and contrast. Remember, on one of them is on either side, on the outside of the circles, where it's just whatever subject, that's where you're contrasting, where the differences are. And then the stuff in the middle, that's the comparison. That's the stuff that's the same. So what you're going to be doing in this assignment that I've given you, you have 2 weeks to do it, so it's not due on Friday, it's due next week. The assignment is to compare and contrast yourself with the person who came to us in August when you started middle school at Fort Morgan Middle School, to the point in which now you're you're here. You're in March and April, and who are you? What is the comparison? What are the similarities between that person in August and that person today? And what are the differences between August and now? It can be emotional, they can be mental, they can be friends, they can be physical, they can be, maybe you dyed your hair, maybe you got glasses, maybe you got contacts. Those differences and similarities are cool things to kind of examine. And remember, this assignment, it's a 3-slide assignment. And there's 3 slides. One is for symbolism, one is for compare and contrast, and the other is for theme. So it's all encompassing in one assignment on Google Classroom. Part 4. Part 4 is the music. Now, I don't know if you enjoyed the Everly Brothers. I suspect you didn't, because it was a little bit of a quirky pick. But this next one, I think at least at a base level, you'll appreciate. The music and artist choice is Creedence Clearwater Revival. And the song that I chose was Down on the Corner, because I imagine that once we get free of this COVID-19 business and the disease is on its way out and we are able to socially gather once more, that it'll be something like this song will happen in our communities, where we all kind of will come out of our homes and gather together. So I'll put a link down in the description for you to click on and listen to, but I'm just going to read some of the lyrics in poem form for you to kind of give you an idea. Early in the evening, just around supper time, over by the courthouse, they're starting to unwind. 4 kids on the corner trying to bring you up. Willie picks a tune out and he blows it on the harp. Here's the chorus. Down on the corner, out in the street. Willie and the po' boys are playing. Bring a nickel, tap your feet. Rooster hits the washboard and people just got to smile. Blinky thumps the gut bass and solos for a while. Poor boy twangs the rhythm out on his Kalamazoo. Willie goes into a dance and doubles on kazoo. Down on the corner, out in the street. Willie and the po' boys are playing. Bring a nickel, tap your feet. You don't need a penny just to hang around, but if you've got a nickel, won't you lay your money down? Over on the corner, there's a happy noise, and people come from all around to watch the magic boy. Down on the corner, out in the street. Willie and the poor boys are playing. Bring a nickel, tap your feet. My name's Mr. Delay. That's the bell for class. My hope is that you got something out of today. My hope is that this gives you something to work on, something to think about. And we will see you in the next video tomorrow when class is back in session. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and know that you are absolutely, fully, and completely loved. See you in the next one. Down on the corner, body in the street. Willie and the po' boys playing. Bring a nickel, tap your feet. Boom, 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 boom.